going back to the same thing about navigating career transitions, which you just fantastic, you had a great example of that.
Yeah.
What are some of the strategies you can recommend for professionals who are making a significant career change? So the leaders whom you were able to move from one role to a different role, what are some of the strategies do you recommend, or do you think those leaders had in them, that they were, one thing is you are asking them to do, the other thing is accepting and saying yes, I'm open to doing it. So what do you think
That's
were
right.
some of those strategies which you accept, which you kind of demonstrated?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of one guy in particular, and I'll get the point of it is you have to have some clarity and be able to have a narrative for yourself.
Yes.
And so there was one gentleman that we were coaching who was American, who had spent a number of years in one of the Asian offices. And it was a sales related role. And so he was describing, because we did mock interviews with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he was describing when he got there and how he made this transition. I said, hold on, here you are, an American, first time in Asia. And I said, how did you build credibility in that community? If you were going to attract new talent to work with and for you, you didn't just walk in and all of a sudden everybody's come bowing at your feet. And so he hadn't thought about it. But when I
Yes.
asked him to explain it, it demonstrated, it was an example of all these capabilities and all this knowledge that he had and all of this sensibilities, because this work, the higher up you go, the more important your intuition, there are those, your just awareness, your self-awareness, your awareness of others,
Yes.
that becomes so important. And I think a lot of folks don't understand that. They just think, well, if I'm smart, I'll get it done.
Mm.
You get things done through other people. And so you have to connect with other people, especially when you're moving into different cultures. That's the only way.
True.
And in a sales role. So I think asking him that question flipped on a light for him to understand how he needed to talk about his prior experience and even frame it for the listener to understand how, not just what, but how he did things that would set him up to do similar kinds of things in a different organization, in a different
Mm-hmm.
sector.
Sector.
And so to me, that's the power of the narrative becomes essential when you're making a transition into a different sector, a different function,
Yes.
a different company, all of those things. You've got to help
Yep.
somebody. You got to connect the dots for them. And,
Right.
people think, oh, well, it's here on my resume. I'm like, I don't care what's on your resume. And your resume isn't you. Tell me a
Yes.
story of how you got here, where you want to go, how I can help you get there, and why it makes sense for me to help you get there.
Yeah. And I so agree with you, Ginny, because sometimes I think we are so involved in doing the art of it that we forget the science. And it's only when you ask the right questions, then you actually start thinking that, oh, this is what I did. And that's how
Yes.
I got there. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, that is such a great story. And a lot of us in our daily things forget how we got there, and I think we undermine ourselves sometimes, saying
We
that
do.
it just happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Give your
yeah,
and
great.
that's again, the narrative isn't just for the listener. You need to work on it for yourself. And there's something that is actually quite fortifying and healing when you do that. I have 2 podcast episodes devoted to building your narrative, and I have a YouTube video as well. But and it's mentioned in the book, but I just think people don't understand we're humans working in these organizations. That's what an organization is. It's made up of people. It's
Right.
a legal construct. And we need to connect as human beings. And the best way to connect is share a story about yourself. I'm not saying pour your life history out. We don't need all those details, but every once in a while, depending on who I'm talking to, I mention, like I did to you, I was a single mother for the better
Yeah.
part of my career, for
Mm.
more than half of it. And that was a source of pride. It had implications on my work.
Of
I'm not
course.
saying I don't need you to respect me or not. But it's important to me because my son was the most important thing, more important than my work. But
Right.
I think it demonstrates the fact that I have resilience, I have tenacity, I have energy and commitment to the work that I do in addition to being a mother. And that's
Absolutely.
relevant. I don't care if I'm talking to a man or a woman. That should be relevant to them when they think about bringing me into their organization. So talk
No,
about some of the things of your personal life and how that's impacted and how you've managed those circumstances selectively on a limited way.
sure.
But similarly, why did you want to do this work? Why? Why does it have meaning? Right?
True.
Why our company? And it means you got to think through all those things.
Hmm. Very. I mean, it's really just fantastic hearing your experiences, and one of the things which you said, it's so relatable. And I think I really want to applaud you for that. The point where you talked about being a single mother and doing your work and with the same kind of passion. I think the moment you open yourself to that vulnerable side of you, it just makes me as a listener and as as a fellow colleague talking to you, equally more relatable. So I know, like, Ginny is a human being who's doing that, and she is not a
It wasn't
goddess who's doing
easy.
it. So maybe I can also do that. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's just been a pleasure just hearing your stories. And do you have anything before we wrap up? Anything else you would like to share with us, your listeners, your followers? Your
I'll
two
say
cents.
this. Yeah, one of the things that I'm really passionate about of late, where these last few years have brought me, as I said, the every speech I do, and very often I repeat the same speech, but I always rewrite it, I always update it, and I always cater it to my audience. And and I read a lot of comments on social media in response to my content. And what's clear to me is that a lot of people in the workplace, a lot of the workforce are suffering. They're not in good health. They're not in a good frame of mind. They're anxious. They're concerned. They're upset. They feel undervalued, underpaid. There's, I think, a 36% engagement rate right now. I think it's 36 from Gallup. It's at an all-time low. And
True.
that's not okay. But you couple that with the other stat, the 18% of leaders are considered good. So is it any wonder why we
Yes,
have this disengaged?
absolutely.
So to me, I want the rest of the workforce. I talk in terms of the 5 and the 95. In many
Sure.
organizations, you've got leaders, people in leadership roles, and they represent up to 5%. If Google it
Sure.
was 2,
Yes.
might be
In the
5,
pyramid,
right? Who are
it's
managers and
5%.
things.
Yeah.
The other 95, and I want to talk to them, right? I mean, a lot of my content is directed to the leader and the aspiring leaders. The
Leaders,
rest
right?
of the 95, I want you to understand that you are leaders in your own right and you can affect change from within. And I
Yes.
need you to stop feeling beholden and in service to the organization and the people that might be structurally over you as leaders. You have an obligation to hold leaders accountable for better behavior, to hold leaders accountable for creating a meritocracy. And there are
Sure.
ways that you can do it. In a lot of the videos that I produce, I'm seeking to give you very granular things that you can say and empower you to begin to affect change. I just think it's a new day. And we
Yes.
cannot just wait because the interests of the leaders very often are not aligned with our interests. You would hope that, and you would even think that they would be, because you can't get it done without us, right?
Right.
Without
Right.
the 95. You can't. And yet they're not aligned. Who's making more of the money? Okay. So
Yeah.
we need to shift that. And I think it's a bit of, I call it a revolution, um, but it's a peaceful one and it's from within. And it's done with integrity and empathy and a lot of the things that we haven't necessarily gotten. So it requires us to
Yes.
stand up and say, I'm I'm not just going to leave. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to see if I can't make it better. There were times when I was in organizations where I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to work here. And I
Right.
stayed in a couple cases because I wanted to learn something, and I wanted to find a way to affect some change, even if it was on a small scale to a process, even if it was demonstrating leadership to my team in ways that they hadn't experienced before that was supportive of them. So that's my call out to the other 95. Don't feel as though you don't have options. You do. This is
You
not
do.
servitude. Okay. This is not slavery again. This is a new day, and you have the agency, the right, the obligation to stand up and make things better from wherever you sit and start holding
Absolutely.
people accountable, whether it's corporate America, government, nonprofits, academia, every sector of our society, all over the world. Time to stand up.
True, absolutely. I mean, that's great advice, Ginny, and I think that's so needed right now,
Yeah.
especially with, when you talked about the mental health issues people are facing. We hear on medical reports people getting cardiac arrest at the age of 25, 28, and it's so much to do
Even
with the stress that
suicides.
they, yeah,
Come on. It's
absolutely,
not that
yeah,
serious. I'm not giving you that much power over me. And
true,
I think that's really what I'm saying. Take your power back. Know who you are.
absolutely,
Know what you will and won't accept, and start telling these organizations, these leaders, these people how you need to be treated, because
right,
they're not
right,
being held accountable for any of that. But you can tell them you do have a
yeah.
voice, and I want people to start using their voice for good. Show a new way.
Sure, new way. Absolutely. And I think thank you so much for that advice. That was really needed. Just wanted to, before we wrap up, I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been an insightful conversation. We intend to have many more. There's so many things and aspects of you that we've not spoken about, and we really want to get back on that. We
I would
couldn't
love
talk
it.
about spiritualism. We couldn't talk about your coaching time, and I personally so interested in your conscious leadership
Yes.
conversation. So we will definitely going to get back to you again and say there's a lot more we need to get out of you. So thank you so
Perfect.
much for your time, and just for all the listeners who are aspiring leaders, if you have not, please go ahead and pick up the career mapping, chart your course in the new world of work. It is absolutely in our most readable and recommended books. And to our
Thank you.
listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Ginny as much as I had. Do subscribe to our Leadership Lighthouse podcast and leave us a review. What else would you want to hear from us? We'd be more than happy to get more content for you. And follow us on Instagram at the Leadership Lighthouse for more inspiring content. And until next time, thank you so much, Ginny. It's been a pleasure. And we really want to get back to you very, very soon. So thank you. Shine
Shweta,
bright.
thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Ginny. Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Ginny. Bye bye.